Self-esteem is a key concept for you to have balanced emotionality and to be more capable of achieving the goals you have set for yourself. On this channel, we have talked about employability, job interviews, how you can create your resume, how you can present yourself effectively, and ultimately, anything that can help you find a job or change the job you already have. But there are concepts like self-esteem that we must keep very much in mind when we think about making changes in our lives. So, in this video, we are going to see what self-esteem is, why it is important to have high self-esteem, and how you can improve it to achieve your goals. But don't worry, because I'm not going to talk to you about thinking positively, exercising, and all those things you usually find when you search for information about self-esteem. Let's get a bit scientific to understand how the mind works and how we can program it to improve. Let's begin. Hello, I am John Charles. I work in human resources, and I am here to give you a hand. Let's start from the beginning. What is the concept of self-esteem? What is self-esteem? You more or less already know what it is and have seen that many people frequently use this concept. But let me define it so that we can all start from the same point. Self-esteem is related to the concept we have of ourselves. That is, it is the way we judge and evaluate ourselves. I really like Rosenberg's definition because it gives us some different concepts. For him, it is an attitudinal phenomenon influenced by social and cultural forces. Look, it places self-esteem as influenced by culture and society. And this is very important because self-esteem is usually only related to ourselves, to how we judge ourselves, but it is actually very influenced by the society you are in and by your culture. Well, now that we know what self-esteem is, let's look at the components of self-esteem. The cognitive component is what we think about ourselves, that is, about your personality and your behavior. The affective component, what you feel, your emotions about yourself, and the behavioral component, the decisions you make, what you do, and what you want to do. Now that we have aligned what self-esteem means to us, you already know that self-esteem can be high or low. So if we intend to have high self-esteem and we are going to see how this works, how can we do it? The first thing is to know if you have high self-esteem or low self-esteem. That will be your starting point. Let's start with low self-esteem, and I will tell you some symptoms, some questions you can ask yourself that will help you decide if you have low self-esteem right now. Let's go over some points that people with low self-esteem have in common. There are many more, but I will tell you the most important ones. A person with low self-esteem has motivation that doesn't last long, someone who gets demotivated quite easily. More signs of low self-esteem include not liking to take risks because failure is not an option for you. If you have made mistakes in the past, you tend to remind yourself of them quite frequently. You might think that you are a person without any special appeal, neither intellectual nor physical. When you do something, you review things. Many times you prefer that others make the decisions. If you are honest with yourself, sometimes you feel envious of people who have some success, and you prefer not to express your opinion so as not to impose what you think on others. You start projects but do not finish them. If you identify with all or some of these phrases, you can be quite sure that your self-esteem is not at its best. And in this video, we are going to see how we can improve it. But first, let's use as a reference the endpoint. That is what people with high self-esteem are like. Well, it is precisely the opposite of what we just saw. People with high self-esteem feel good about themselves. They express their own point of view without fear. Contact and relationships with other people come naturally to them. They stand out in social groups in a certain way. They are independent in their actions, but also in their emotions. They do not depend so much on external factors. They do not show rejection to new challenges, so they continuously opt for new and better opportunities. They have more willpower than other people to achieve their goals. They are capable of helping others in an honest and selfless manner. They take responsibility for their own actions and are much less likely to develop envy towards others. And well, there are many other things, but what interests me at this point is for you to see where you can go and some things you can achieve if you have high self-esteem. If we apply this to job searching or improving the job you already have, you can already deduce that with high self-esteem, you will stand out much more among the rest of the candidates. Thus, your chances of achieving success will be much greater. Now let's see what you can do to improve your self-esteem. First, don't try to always think positively. Many times when you look for information about self-esteem, they tell you that you need to think positively. And there is a whole movement of positive thinking out there. And that's great. It's great as long as you can manage to have positive thoughts, but it's very difficult to achieve. And no, it's not just you who can't manage to have that positive thinking that they keep telling you about. It's that your mind doesn't work that way. It's not programmed to think positively. If they don't insist that you have positive thinking, they are asking you to largely go against your own nature, which generates more frustration and produces the opposite effect. It bursts your self-esteem. The American Psychological Association discusses this in a study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology. I have left the study in the description box in case you want to consult it. Basically, his conclusion is that negative information is much more attractive to the brain. For example, if you do something and 4 people congratulate you and say you did a good job, but one person tells you that your work was very bad or says that what you did is nothing but nonsense, at the end of the day, who are you going to think about more? Obviously, the person who has criticized you negatively will be much more present in your thoughts. This is because our mind focuses more on these things, on threats, as a defense mechanism to avoid them. This is called negativity bias, and it is a survival mechanism. So the advice here is to be aware of this, to know how your brain works, and to set certain limits when thinking positively. Because if you don't, positive thinking will take a toll on your self-esteem. What you can do is identify the problem, face it, and keep moving forward. Take the weight off happiness. Being happy is important, yes, but thinking about it constantly is not going to make you happy. Aspiring to happiness as a goal is not healthy for your self-esteem. At the beginning of the video, we talked about Rosenberg's definition of self-esteem. There we saw that a large part of self-esteem depends on society and culture. So if you focus on happiness or self-esteem in a way that doesn't consider these external factors, you will again face frustration, and that will reduce your self-esteem. Another study by the American Psychological Association, published by Iris Maus and Maya Tamir, which I also leave in the description, shows that the desire to be happy and not being able to achieve it generates greater unhappiness than what existed before deciding to seek that happiness. We can call this the paradox of the pursuit of happiness, because in seeking to be happy, you make yourself more unhappy. So, don't think of happiness as a goal. 3. Precisely speaking of goals, set objectives that are achievable. Having a purpose in your mind gives you a reason for living. This will help you have better self-esteem because there will be a purpose in what you do. And many times when I see people's goals, they tend to be something like becoming a millionaire, which is great, very ambitious. But statistically, how likely are you to become a millionaire? The answer is few, because resources are limited. So even if your goal is to become a millionaire, it is very likely that you will be one of the people who do not achieve it. Setting yourself a very ambitious goal can, once again, generate frustration and reduce your self-esteem. This is very similar to what we just saw, the paradox that the more you desire to achieve something you can't get, the worse your self-esteem will be. Of course, unless you achieve it. But as I said, statistically, it is more unlikely. Take small steps, gradually increase them, and as you achieve them, you will improve your self-esteem. 4. Ask yourself a lot. Self-esteem is related to self-knowledge, that is, what you know about yourself. So, high self-awareness is related to high self-esteem. For this, it is necessary to ask yourself internally many times. That way, you obtain much more information. If you doubt something or are afraid of a situation, if you prefer not to interact with someone, ask yourself some questions like, why do I avoid doing this? Why do I intend to act this way? What is my purpose with this act? How can thinking like this help me? And what are my chances of achieving this if I do that? Ask yourself a lot and answer yourself frequently, because this increases your self-awareness and boosts your self-esteem. 5. Iteration or repetition. This is nothing more than trying, attempting, and repeating. I just talked to you about setting achievable goals, but this doesn't mean you should torment yourself if you don't achieve them. The mindset that will lead you to higher self-esteem is not one that is excessively demanding. Have you set a goal? Work towards achieving it, but don't obsess over it. If you fail, it's okay. Set another goal or the same one and try again. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying you shouldn't have ambition in what you do. It's about not dwelling on failure, because if you are afraid of failing, you won't start doing anything, you won't set goals, and you won't try. And that is terrible for your self-esteem. In the book, Paradoxes and Innovations in Theory and Clinical Practice, published by Richard Bednar and Scott Peterson, it is demonstrated how self-esteem can be increased by reducing avoidance behaviors. That is to say, your self-esteem is better if you try to do things, regardless of whether you achieve them or not. 6. The management of fear. Fear is something we will surely address in another video with more detail. But yes, fear is limiting your self-esteem. So it is very important that you identify when a fear arises and know how to act with it. And I can already tell you that this is precisely the opposite of what your mind will want to do with fear. What is it that your mind will naturally tell you? Avoid fear. That is, your thought will be to block the fear or do something else that occupies you, that takes you away from the fear. But this doesn't work because the fear doesn't go away and you are not developing high self-esteem with it. I leave you another link in the description with an article from the American Psychological Association. It was published by Leah Winterman and is titled something like Surprising the White Bears. Talk about it. Talk about fears and the negative consequences of avoiding them. Okay, we shouldn't avoid fears, but how do we face them? First, identify the fear, rationalize it, and find its cause. Second, find the root of the fear internally, that is why it scares you. And third, accept it as a reality, so that you can adapt your behavior to neutralize the effects of the fear. You won't eliminate the cause of fear, but you will learn to act with it. And your self-esteem will notice it, it will rise. And that's it, with this I finish the video. I hope it has been very useful to you and that it helps you at least to reflect on your self-esteem and think about how you can improve it. If you've made it to the end, don't forget to leave a good like so that YouTube recommends this video to others who need it, and share it with your friends if you think they might be interested. I hope that boosting your self-esteem helps you in your job search and that you present a much better image in job interviews. Oh, and I'd like to tell you something else. If you've made it to the end of the video and you're not subscribed, it would be great if you could subscribe because YouTube tells me that 93% of the people who watch my videos are not subscribed to the channel. So if you are interested in this content, subscribe, activate the bell, and we'll see you in the next video. That's all. Thank you very much, and we'll see you in the next video. Goodbye. 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 Goodbye.